As we continue to dive into psychedelic medicine, we really want to be able to showcase a few companies that are in this space, but also learn from the executives and learn from why they believe this is a great opportunity, not only for investors from an investment standpoint, but also for medicine and for those suffering from various different ailments that potentially this can help solve. For that reason, we have James Lanthier. He is the CEO of Mindset Pharma. My good man, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brendan.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your time because this is a sector and an industry that I think many people are still very ignorant towards. And I mean that in the truest way, reason of that word, in the sense that they just don't understand it. But when you start learning more and speaking to individuals like yourself, like we were just prior to beginning recording, there's some amazing stories within this space. And it actually has a lot of merit, which we'll soon get to. But if you don't mind, really quickly, give us a little background on yourself and the company that you're putting together.
Sure. So, Mindset Pharma is a drug discovery company. So we're focused on discovering and developing novel psychedelic medicines. So new psychedelic drugs. We're focused on the upfront part of discovery, designing them, and then taking them through a preclinical steps to establish that they work. My name is James Lanthier. I'm the CEO. My background is as I've been a CEO and a CFO or C-level executive of a number of different public companies here in Canada. Um, the business I most recently started though was a detour into healthcare. Um, it was a business that applied artificial intelligence to the variables of human fertility. But I joined Mindset because, um, like a lot of people, I'd become um, gradually kind of aware of some of the benefits of psychedelics and the use of psychedelics as medicine. And I'd had seen friends, some of my own friends, really undergo some pretty radical transformations in their own life with the use of psychedelics. And as I did more kind of research into the space and realized that um, this was not a one-off thing, and that actually these drugs as medicine actually are increasingly well understood by researchers and by regulators. Um, and when I came across the group, I was really excited to join them because I think that of all the businesses that I've been involved in or that I've looked at over the years, I think the space and really this one in particular has a tremendous ability to help people because the range of different um, mental health afflictions that psychedelic medicines it's being established that they help address is really quite profound. It's kind of a who's who of all the worst mental afflictions that are kind of relative, like, sadly pretty common these days, whether that's depression or PTSD or OCD, anxiety, you name it. These drugs have a quite an ability to help people who suffer from those kinds of chronic conditions, and I thought that the chance to be part of um, something like this was really too great to pass up.
Yeah, and I appreciate the about that description there, and especially going over the various different afflictions that this could be used for psychedelic medicine. That is now, when speaking on your company in itself and the various different areas that you're going to, are you going into one specific area, maybe PTSD, maybe depression, and really focusing on those areas, or is it a little bit more broad? So, for someone who's just finding out about your company, what
Yeah.
exactly are you currently working on?
Right. So as I said, we're at the upfront part of the drug discovery and drug development process. And what that really means, and means kind of specifically in the case of psychedelics, is and this is pretty interesting. There's actually been, at this point, over the last several decades, quite a bit of research and scientific work that's gone into understanding psychedelics better. Most of that research has been funded by not-for-profit groups, and most of that research is really focused on establishing that the drugs have a therapeutic benefit, that they are, relatively safe, not toxic, and that they're relatively non-addictive. And all that research has really checked, all three of those boxes. When it comes to commercializing the space, or turning this into a real market, though, one of the issues with that is that all of the classic psychedelics are in the public domain. They've all been, understood for, published, and under their structures have been understood for, for decades, decades and decades, whether that's LSD or psilocybin, which is the psychoactive ingredient in mushrooms, or MDMA. They've all long been in the public domain. We felt like um, there was a kind of a tipping point um, that the psychedelic universe was gonna hit soon, where these later stage clinical trials at late stage 2 and stage 3 were kind of working their way through the system, and psychedelic drugs were going to be approved, but the companies that ultimately will probably bring drugs to market didn't have patentable psychedelic drugs to take to market, which is obviously critical for big pharma. And the substances themselves, weren't necessarily optimized to work as pharmaceutical drugs. They're great, they're very helpful, but the analogy that we use is, if you had a headache, um, you wouldn't go out and chew on the bark of a willow tree to try to extract the salicylic acid, um, that might give you some pain relief. You would take an aspirin that's based on that acid. You take a drug that's based on the original substance, because the aspirin has been constructed to work in a fairly similar way for a very large excuse me, population group. I think the same is going to be true with psychedelics. As wonderful as as mushrooms are, um, they're you're not you get you're probably not going to take a mushroom, because the level of psilocybin that you're going to get from that mushroom is could vary quite wildly between mushrooms. You're probably not even going to take psilocybin, because psilocybin has certain limitations as a pharmaceutical drug. You're probably going to take a drug that is based off of psilocybin, but that's optimized to work as a pharmaceutical. So that's what we've designed. So our company, as I said, is at kind of the discovery end of the IP process, which was where we think the greatest kind of potential value is commercially, because we believe, and based on all our conversations with participants in the market, I think people agree that um, ultimately the drugs that are going to be successful are going to be kind of patented next generation psychedelics that still incorporate the psychedelic effect that you need for the therapeutic benefit, but are optimized to work as pharmaceutical drugs. So that's our focus.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, especially the analogy with aspirin, because it does make a lot of sense. You're not going to go out there and get those original ingredients, especially not bark of a tree. But there's been drugs that have been formulated either with or around that for that specific purpose, and that's exactly what you're going into. So that actually makes a lot of sense there. When it comes to current medical or clinical trials that are happening right now, especially around PTSD and depression. Those are the two that a lot of people speak about.
Yes.
Are there any
Yes.
clinical trials right now that you're excited that either have just concluded or are about to conclude that will really break open this industry?
Well, look, all of them,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I mean, I think the reason that you probably hear the most about the depression and PTSD trials is that, number one, they're at stage three. Number two, that the FDA has given expanded access to these trials, which is kind of a tacit admission in some ways that these substances work and have a real therapeutic benefit. Um, and and these are indications, depression and PTSD, that have absolutely enormous population groups that are afflicted by them. I mean, you'll hear again and again, but it's true. Depression, there's over 300 million people worldwide who suffer from it. A third of that group doesn't respond to treatments. There's been very little advancement really in medications that treat depression. We probably all know people who do suffer from depression and have taken these drugs, and I think anybody who's had to take them probably would say that the drugs have certain undesirable side effects and drawbacks. So these are, I think, the reason why those trials keep coming up is because it really is so relatable. We all know people who suffer from one or both of those indications.
Absolutely, and it's something that continues to grow as well. If you throw anxiety in there as well, everyone, it's the pace that we
Absolutely.
work at in Western civilization, North America. The anxiety, the depression, the expectations that people put on themselves, sometimes the false
Yep.
expectations that the media and different things really impose on individuals. It can be overbearing, and people are quick to turn to certain drugs. I know certain close friends that have gone to depression drugs and things of the like, and it does change them in
Yeah.
undesirable ways. But if they had an option to find something maybe more natural or maybe something without those certain side effects, I believe they'd be very open to it. When it
Right.
comes to your company and how one day you're going to be generating revenue, obviously the looking into these into IP and really formulations, that's obviously a massive part of your company. Is there an element like opening up clinics or having services for others that may be a revenue generation for your company, or are you strictly on the IP side of things?
So for the moment, our focus really is on the IP side, and for the foreseeable future, we think that is where there's the opportunity to really capture kind of the greatest value in the market. Clinics are going to be an absolutely essential part of the growth of this space, and I think there's groups in it that are doing a good job in breaking ground there. But um, what we think is really going to um, be the most valuable end of this market will be the new drugs, and it's where we see kind of the greatest opportunity. We think that most of, like I said, over the last few decades, a lot of the work has gone into establishing the benefit of them, um, and more recently there's been work in for in synthesis and sort of how you extract the psilocybin out of the mushroom, or how what format you deliver it to people in. There's been relatively little work that's gone into the actual drugs, and I think we're just looking to, or we're just applying what you call rational or structural drug design to these substances, which is something that you see happen in really every area of modern pharmacy, where you're applying rational drug design to natural substances to try to make something better that works in a similar way for sort of the largest population group. So we think we've made a lot of progress. We've based on our work. We filed two patent applications in the early part of 2020. We have some more on the way related to other um, other new drugs, and some processes related to those drugs. So we think there's still plenty of opportunity to build new kind of valuable intellectual property in the space that we think will just become kind of more valuable as the space grows.
Absolutely. And that's actually the next question that was on my mind was I know you're at the discovery phase and you're really looking into different things, but was there any IP that was already put through so that you're looking to have that process of getting it patented and how long away you are on other processes, which you just answered, because I'm sure investors would be very curious in that.
Yeah,
When
we're probably only well, I'll say a month away from some additional intellectual property filings, and I think as we add more scientists to the team, and grow, we see quite a bit of opportunity in developing new IP.
Absolutely. And I appreciate taking this much time going into the foundation of your company because, unlike a lot of other companies that come on our platform, I believe this space is still very unknown to a lot of people. So, understanding what makes a company, understanding the opportunity, understanding the people involved in that opportunity is very, very important. But what's also important is understanding a potential investment. For
Yeah.
investors, what are there different areas in which maybe private placements coming up in the near future? Are there what is a way for an investor to be able to say, "Hey, I like what I've heard here. We're going to get to in a moment how to reach out to find out more information." But how can an investor be a part of your company?
Sure. So today we're a private company. We're all the funds that we've raised, have come from ourselves, and from a few friends. So we haven't yet marketed the company kind of beyond our own networks. We're like every other company in the space. We're looking at what's happening in the public markets with interest. We haven't made any decisions yet. So there isn't, I guess I would say, there isn't a way yet today for um, other folks to invest in the company. But there could be in the not too distant future. But we haven't made any firm decisions about that yet.
Hey, you know what? As an investor myself, I like to hear that personally because I like to find out companies earlier on, get to understand the management and what they're building, and I like to find them before starting those rounds and going to the IPO round and whatever have you. Nothing wrong after the IPO. There's still lots of opportunity there, but there's something there for those who like a risk reward and believe in a certain space. Which the more I'm hearing about this, the more it makes sense that this space is up and coming. They've done, like you said earlier at the beginning of this interview, they've done work on psychedelic medicine for decades. It just has never made that really big leap, except for recent years, and potentially with everything that happened with cannabis and how we had this stigma around it. But then everyone started, wait a second, no, there's medical properties here. This could really be used for a lot of things. It'd be very hopeful of myself and of course yourself as well that mentality leads to pushing saying, hey, we also have a lot of data from a lot of years looking into this. Now let's push this into an actual medical state. Let's really make this a part of people's lives. So very, very excited for that. James, one last thing for anybody who's hearing about this and they want to find out more about your company, where can they turn to? A website, an email? If you can just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. They can visit our website, which is mindsetpharma.com. There's quite a bit of there's a decent amount of information about the company on the website, and there's also an email for anyone who'd like to contact us, and would like more information. We're always we love talking to people who are interested in the space, and we're more than happy to speak with anyone who's interested.
Absolutely. Well, James, thank you very much for donating some of your time to really dig deep into this space and into your company as well. It's a pleasure having you on. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well.